Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Daniel Foster, contributing editor at National Review Online, is in for Jim Garrity today. I believe the cruise is wrapping up today, and Jim should be back on Monday. Dan, you've done an excellent job in Jim's stead. You made it 5 full days here, or at least you're on your 5th day. How do you feel?
I'm a little punch drunk. You know, it's a demanding schedule, and I don't know how Jim does it. I don't even have little ankle biters running around at my feet like he does. But it's been a pleasure.
Excellent. Well, it's always great to have you, and we hope to have you again sometime soon when Jim is off doing exciting things other than the Three Martini Lunch. But let's jump to our good martini today. And the president has finally made a decision on who he wants to be the next Attorney General of the United States. He tweets out in a two-parter today, "I am pleased to announce that I will be nominating the Honorable William P. Barr for the position of Attorney General of the United States. As the former AG for George H.W. Bush and one of the most highly respected lawyers and legal minds in the country, he will be a great addition to our team. I look forward to having him join our very successful administration." And just looking at the tweets, it's amazing what he randomly decides to capitalize and not capitalize, but that's a whole other story. Dan, Bill Barr is widely respected. He served as Attorney General in the second half of the Bush administration from 1991 to 1993, when Bush's first Attorney General, Dick Thornburgh, resigned to go run for Senate in Pennsylvania and unfortunately did not succeed in that adventure. He is now in his late 60s. He is well respected. And in fact, the main reason this is a good martini today is because Andy McCarthy, your colleague there at National Review Online, who I think is probably one of the most fair judicial minds out there, tweets out, quote, "I do not see how POTUS could have made a better choice than Bill Barr for AG. He is simply excellent, supremely qualified, confident, smart, steeped in the honorable traditions of DOJ, and an all-around good guy. He can right the ship and navigate through the storms." I guess the last point we should make is that this is Bill Barr, not Bob Barr, who was a congressman from back in the Clinton impeachment era. So what do you make of all this?
Yeah, you know, I take a lot of stock in what Andy McCarthy has to say about stuff like this, of course. So his endorsement counts a lot. Obviously, HW liked him. He was widely regarded for his role in the handling of the hostage crisis at Talladega in the early 90s. With the FBI. He was deputy AG there, so he was kind of a day-to-day guy before he took over the cabinet-level position. So all of that is good. It's certainly great to have a kind of establishment pick when you can get him with this administration and not, you know, somebody coming right out of Fox and Friends. So I don't know all that much else about him, but I will be saying Bob Barr for the foreseeable future, I'm sure. But it's also worth pointing out, and I have to, you know, give full disclosure to our listeners because they deserve it. I got this from his Wikipedia page, but I'm guessing that one of the things that was most attractive to the president about Barr was that he gave these quotes to the New York Times during the election about how it was a good idea to investigate Hillary Clinton, and actually the Justice Department should look at Uranium One and all of that stuff. So I tend to think, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I tend to think that weighed a little bit more heavily with President Trump when he was being presented with Barr's resume than did, say, his stint at Kirkland Ellis. Yeah. So well, it could be interesting.
Yeah, certainly the case. And I'm guessing, this is just spitballing here, that if he is confirmed, which I assume he would be, that he probably won't recuse himself in the Russia investigation. Just a hunch.
That's a fair guess, yeah.
So, well, that's the good news. There's a couple other personnel nuggets that are happening today. The president also tweeting out that Heather Nauert, in case you missed Dan's foreshadowing there with the Fox and Friends reference, Heather Nauert, who was on Fox and Friends, is currently the spokeswoman at the State Department, is now the president's choice to be ambassador to the United Nations, replacing Nikki Haley. Some folks think she's a little bit green for that. Not a lot of experience along the lines of, George H.W. Bush and Gene Kirkpatrick and even Nikki Haley. But she does do a good job at the State Department briefings. And one of the main things you want there is somebody who can deliver a strong message and hopefully marshal other countries to follow your lead, which is a tough job at the UN. Nikki Haley led the effort to pass a resolution condemning Hamas there yesterday, and it failed. And then the other big personnel news is that it looks like No confirmation on this from the president yet, but that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is expected to resign soon, possibly as soon as today. Apparently, Trump is not even speaking to him anymore, and it looks like Mike Pence's Chief of Staff, a 36-year-old guy named Nick Ayers, is in line to replace him, if this is true. I mean, there's lots of reports about musical chairs at the White House, but the Nauert nomination is apparently official, and it looks like John Kelly's days might actually be numbered this time. What do you think?
Yeah, the Nauert stuff, I agree with you. She does a nice job as a spokesman for state. She is a little green. To the extent that a more experienced person, you'd want somebody like that there in the event of a global crisis, of course. I don't think it's the most important job in the world, and I think that's kind of the message that's being sent here. As for Kelly, I have to say, you can't trust generally, leaks about personnel coming from the White House, because oftentimes they're part of, internecine fighting, and they're trying to create realities with preemptive leaks and sort of snowball things. And that's just doubly or triply so with this White House. And indeed, I just saw the news director at the Daily Caller say from a highly placed source that the report about Kelly is false, that he merely took the day off today, and that's why he wasn't on the West Wing. And that might have been the impetus for the story. So, I mean, considering the president changes his mind seemingly about 5 times a day about the people who are closest to him in the White House, combine that with the palace intrigue and infighting, I don't think we really can believe anything until after the resignation actually happens. And moreover, we can't even really believe it then, because I don't know if you saw this, Greg, but there was a story today about how technically Jeff Sessions hasn't really resigned yet, or on some technicality because the Government Accountability Office hasn't received the right paperwork yet saying that he's no longer the Attorney General. So, it's not only that we can't believe, personnel decisions before they happen. They need a few weeks to marinate after they happen too, apparently.
Wow. So John Kelly takes the day off and we get all these rumors. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. But the media can jump to some weird conclusions. And just a fun media note. I was on YouTube this morning looking for some stuff on Pearl Harbor. It's Pearl Harbor Day, so if you know any World War II vets, definitely thank them, especially today. There was a little thing on the side about George H.W. Bush visits the White House day after winning 88 election. So he's there with Reagan, and Dan Quayle's there, and the wives and everything. They're taking some questions from the press, and there's a few questions to Bush about possible cabinet selections. And then this lady asks Reagan, "Do you think you're a has-been now?" So the press hasn't changed, folks. It's just
Reagan might be the only guy who was a has-been before he was president. He was a has-been actor.
That's right.
He went from has-been to world historic leader.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Reagan was older when he was elected governor of California than Bill Clinton was when he left the presidency. So just think about all Reagan accomplished after that. So, all right, let's move on to our bad martini now, Dan. And as we know, a lot of folks on the left wish a lot of people didn't have guns at all. Certainly the guns they really think are dangerous, like the AR-15s and so forth. But it's that pesky little Second Amendment about the right to keep and bear arms. And so the lefties, they're trying to get a little more creative here, and they're trying to just make you not able to afford a weapon anymore. Case in point, up in New York State, there's a Democratic state senator, surprise, surprise, who is pushing Bill S-2857A, title of bill, an act to amend the insurance law in relation to requiring owners of firearms to obtain liability insurance. Purpose, to amend the insurance law to require firearm owners prior to such ownership to obtain and continuously maintain a policy of liability insurance to cover any damages resulting from the use of such firearms. Here's the fun part. Summary of provisions. This amends the insurance law by adding a new section 2353 in order to require firearm owners to obtain and continuously maintain a policy of liability insurance in an amount not less than $1 million. Put your little Dr. Evil pinky up next to your mouth when you say that. So obviously, when you buy insurance, it's not like you have to fork over that kind of money, but to maintain that type of insurance at that level year after year, that definitely adds up month after month. So, Dan, the gun grabbers are just trying to price everybody out of the market now. What do you think?
It's something that they've tried in New York a couple of times in the last few years. The last time they tried it, they set the number, it was in 2017, they set that number at 250,000, and it didn't go anywhere. They won, obviously, in the midterms, so there's a little more danger now. The important things to know about this are, one, no state in the union currently does this. So that should tell you something. And two, that most insurers don't want to play in this space, and they know that. I mean, the Democrats in New York know that. That's one of the reasons they're doing this. But because it's an expensive proposition for insurers, there aren't a lot of programs out there that are affordable to do it, from what I understand. That's certainly been, the NRA's position. And the other important thing to note is that Cuomo in New York is actively and openly, not hiding or mincing words, conducting a campaign to try and put the NRA out of business. And one key plank of that campaign is he is harassing the insurance companies that already work with the NRA to offer one of the few liability insurance programs that's out there. It's called Carry Guard. Cuomo's war, in large part, is behind the NRA's recent financial woes, their layoffs, and their worries about their financial future. If people are familiar with Operation Choke Point from back in the Obama days, it's this effort to blacklist businesses that work with the NRA. And in Cuomo's case, he actually fined a couple of insurance companies alleging violations of regulations, but sort of arbitrarily so. If you look into the details. So it's bad news. And Cuomo has said, I think if we can go after this liability insurance program, we can put them out of business. So at the same time, they want to require gun owners in New York to have liability insurance. One of the few programs that actually offers it, they're also busy trying to put them out of business. So the effect is what? It's going to be that gun ownership is effectively impossible in the state of New York. And thank goodness for the Supreme Court, because the way things are headed, this sort of program is sure going to look like a de facto, at least, violation of the Second Amendment, and it's probably headed there. And if you're somebody who rightly thinks that the history of things like poll taxes is disgraceful in this country, then this is another constitutional right that, through by hook or by crook, Democrats are trying to take away from Americans. So I think it's serious business. It's a bad idea, surely poorly motivated, and not for good reasons. So I hope it doesn't pass. If it does, it's going to the courts.
To require liability insurance to buy a gun and then essentially making it so you can't get liability insurance to own a gun probably falls under being infringed, that right being infringed, which the Second Amendment says. So good luck in the courts. And given what happened with Supreme Court confirmations lately, I'm fairly optimistic about how that might turn out. So we'll see. Yeah. Let's move on to our crazy martini now. And we close the week on pop culture. Variety. Wednesday afternoon, comedian Kevin Hart was announced as the host for the upcoming 91st Annual Academy Awards. By Thursday night, he had stepped down. The turn of events followed outcry over previously anti-gay tweets and comments Hart made during stand-up routines nearly 10 years ago. Some of the tweets were feverishly deleted throughout the day on Thursday, leading to an Instagram video from the comedian that only made matters worse for him. Quote, "My team calls me. Oh my God, Kevin, everybody's upset by tweets you did years ago," he said in that video. "Guys, I'm nearly 40 years old. If you don't believe that people change, grow, evolve as they get older, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to hold people in a position where they always have to justify the past, do you? I'm the wrong guy, man." Those words rang as a defiant non-apology for many. Hours later, Hart resurfaced with another video stating that the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences had given him an ultimatum: apologize or we'll find a new host. Quote, "I chose to pass on the apology," the 39-year-old actor-comedian said in the video. "The reason why I passed is because I've addressed this several times. This is not the first time this has come up. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said where the rights and wrongs were. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it. I'm not going to continue to go back and tap into the days of old when I've moved on and I'm in a completely different place in my life." That too rang hollow for many. Less than 2 hours later, Hart announced via Twitter that he was removing himself from the gig, and he finally offered the apology everyone was looking for. So, Dan, you've got some people obviously talking about how this is the social justice warriors who are going to absolutely try to decimate anyone who's ever said anything that they don't like in the slightest. I mean, we're talking about last decade. We're talking about the George W. Bush administration. They come about 3 or 4 years before even Barack Obama had changed his mind on certain things on the LGBT front. So what do you make of the outcry over Kevin Hart and what it says about where we are in our culture?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Kevin Hart fan. It seems like a really hardworking guy, and who's really grinded for the big success and big bucks that he has. So that's all to the good. I don't think he's a great performer, but that's obviously besides the point in this case. I think the best take on this was from Kat Rosenfeld, a tablet. I just saw it this morning, and she made the great point, which is that, as you said, this is something he apologized for 3 years ago in a very thoughtful way and without a big financial or career incentive the way that he has now. If you go back and look at those comments and look at what he said, it was very heartfelt and clearly somebody who was evolving, like as you mentioned, President Obama and Hillary Clinton and everyone else was evolving right around the same time. His views on this stuff. What Rosenfeld made the point, what's really odd about this and potentially sort of disastrous from a public discourse perspective is that it sets the precedent that you can come back and demand repeat apologies or a new apology or new groveling anytime you want, and that you can sort of call on people. She made the apt comparison to the spouse who stays with their husband or wife after they cheat, but then makes them sort of suffer for it for the next 30 years by constantly bringing it up. And that's the standard we're seeing set by this Hart stuff. Is he's already apologized, already addressed it, and he drew a line in the sand, and good for him, and said, "Look, I'm a changed person. I'm not going to dance for you whenever whenever there's a demand for a new apology." So Lenin famously said, "The worse, the better." And in a way, I find myself kind of rooting for this lefty snake eating its own tail kind of trend that we've seen happen for these last few years with the social justice warriors, because A, it's kind of entertaining to watch them tear each other apart, but B, this heightening of the contradictions, this increasingly the joylessness of so much quote unquote comedy these days, the politicization of all this pop culture, it has a natural stopping point. Now, we don't know where it is, and like I said, things are probably going to get worse before they get better. But eventually these people are going to they're not going to be able to stand, nobody's going to be able to stand each other. There's going to be nothing entertaining about entertainment, and we're going to swing back in the other direction. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So in a weird way, good for Kevin Hart. I think he did the right thing. He's clearly a guy who's sincerely sorry for what he did, and what he refused to do is be a part of this game. It's not like he still holds his views or that he isn't sorry. He just refused to play this game. And so good for him for standing up for it, and bad on the Academy and on sort of Hollywood writ large for becoming ever more joyless by the hour.
The Lenin quote, was that John or Vladimir?
It was Vladimir Ilyich. Okay. Although on certain topics you can't distinguish the two.
That's very difficult sometimes. Always looking for clarification. Dan, a lot of fun being with you this week. Thanks for subbing in for Jim, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Thanks, Greg.
Daniel Foster, contributing editor at National Review Online. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Jim Garrity will be back on Monday. Do tune in then for the next 3 Martini Lunch.